Okay, we've got a full length video today, so 20 odd minutes on a Makita saw repair. So this one, with a battery on, does nothing. Now you might have seen a few of these before, but it's the first time I've managed to get it in 4K or whatever this is, HD. It looks a lot better. So what I want to do is just show you step by step, just in case yours stops working or you want to buy one to practice on, or you just want to learn something. Most of you probably know how to do this anyway. It's very simple. This is what normally goes wrong. So this is the controller, 99 point whatever percentage, it's normally that. So what I'm going to do today is just show you exactly how to take it off and swap it out. So all you need is a normal drill bit there. It's not even a Torx one. It's a Phillips or a Posi or whatever you want to argue about the names. That's what this is. So number of screws on the top there to take out. The two that are right next to the motor, in theory, you could just loosen them out and take this out at an angle. But what I do is I just remove them here, just for completeness, really, just so they're out the way. Makes it a bit tidier as well as you're working. You know exactly what's in, what's out. So some of you are going to say, oh, why don't you check the brushes? So I'm going to do that now, just to stop the comments on that one. But I'll probably just do one, just so we get some comments. It's always good to see something. So we'll pop it out. All you do, get a flathead, unscrew the little side covers, if you like. There's one on each side. There it goes. Now the brushes are just in here. So that bronzy looking thing there, and I'll zoom in a bit so you can see. Hopefully with focus there. So that is the bit that you need to check. So all you do is get something like a flathead here, get a bit of purchase in a corner, and they pop out because they're spring loaded, and then you can inspect the brushes. Now it looks clean and it's got plenty left that you can see. So that is not going to be the issue here. The other one is probably going to be the same. When you change one, you change the other. But I'm going to leave it out just for sake of time. Say this is 20 odd minutes already. Don't want to add some more time. But these are, as I say, 99.9999, always the controller. So let's carry on with unscrewing it and getting this case open. So I say these two here, you could in theory just loosen them, but I am going to take them out. And they are longer than the others, so pop them to the side, but they're very obvious to spot because they're two and a bit times the length, look. So a lot bigger than those other screws. So you can't really mix them up. Now this is the only other slightly odd thing here. It's got this little clip around it. Now what I do is I get a flathead like this. Sometimes I pop it in and use that little hammer to knock it out. But most of the time you can just get the right angle and just pull it out like that. If you do it well, you don't have to replace that. So you can see it's not bent or anything. So then you take the rest of the fixings off, and then you're going to need a 10mm spanner. So these are righty loosey, so the opposite to normal. There's a little nut behind here that you'll need to get in a minute as well, just to make sure you're not just constantly spinning and not actually loosening. So what we'll do, pop it on here, and then we loosen it off by just turning it to the right. Turning it clockwise, which is obviously the opposite to most normal things. So loosen it off as far as you can, and then just pop the little rail down at the bottom and get your finger there behind, just so you can get hold of the back of that screw head if you like, and then you can take that totally off. There's also a little washer under there as well, so take both of those off and just pop them to the side. You're not going to be taking that out unless you're taking the front of the saw off. That won't come out. So leave it there, and that's all you need. It's going to be a bit of a guide really after. So now that's all the screws out. You don't have to take the ones out from the top of the motor or the one to the right there where my hand is. So some of these just pop off really easily. This is a little bit stiff, but fairly simple there to pop off. And the trigger just popped out as well in the perfect place, look. So that's fine, all ready for later. So take them out, and this one's actually quite clean inside. So normally these are full of sawdust and all sorts of stuff. But this just needs a real gentle brush down. Take that trigger out and brush behind it as well. You can see there's a lot of dust getting up and behind there. Probably if you've got it, pop some contact cleaner in just for the sake of it while you're here. Just gives it a bit of a clean. So get everything out that you can, and this looks fairly good, so it's had a good seal. This is the controller, where my thumb is there. So what we're going to have to do is basically take everything out that's cabled in there, loosen it all off, pull that controller out, and then we'll start swapping the cables over. So you're going to need to take the parts around it out, and you're going to loosen those cables as I mentioned. So here, if you tried now, it's quite stiff. So what you need to do is start popping these cables out of the little housings that they're in. They're all in little guides around the saw. So any that you can get, just pop them out and it just loosens it. Now if you turn it round, this is much easier to work with. If you've got it on a bench, you don't have to then lean over where the blade is and stuff. So this is my preferred way here. So all you need to do, as I mentioned, get under those cables. Try not to use anything sharp. See, I'm using this plastic spudger here. Pop them out nice and gently so you don't break anything. And then you start to loosen bits off, like the controller then just popped out, which is brilliant. But you do need to take the rest out because you've got to get access. Now the power connector there at the bottom where your battery goes to, you normally find a little bit of melting around the negative terminal. So that's why this is very stiff, and we'll see that in a second. If I can get in here behind it, it does look like it's melted to the case basically. And that's part of what's gone wrong here. The controller's broken down, that's overheated, and then it's just stopped. So pull that out. There we go, and you can see actually the bit of the case is stuck to it. So that was definitely the issue, that was overheating. So I'll zoom in a bit just to show you that. So that's basically just stuck to the metal connector there, which is interesting. But it doesn't look too bad underneath it, which is also interesting. So this one just popped and that was it. A lot of them you get blackening around them and all sorts of damage on the cable, but this one doesn't look too bad. So we'll pull that off. It's not that important in reality, to be honest. You don't have to replace the whole case for that. So this is what we're going to do with the controller. We're going to start swapping the cables sort of one for one, if we can. You can't always do it one for one. Or it doesn't make sense to, but I'll show you that as I go. So pick where you're going to start. Get a small precision screwdriver like this, just a little flathead really. And I'm going to start with the purple one. And you can see there's actually two cables in there. And I'll show you what I do. You might have your own preference. You might want to do it a different way. That's totally up to you. I'm just showing you how I do it. You could even put a little a crimp in there or whatever you want to call it to connect the two wires together and pop it in securely. So these are what the ends look like on the new ones. All you have to do is pull that off. It's already sort of part cut there around the insulation. So what I'm going to do is give it a bit of a mechanical connection. All I'm actually doing is obviously just wrapping it around the other cable. I like to think that that gives it a little bit of strength. So if you get the two cables and wrap them around, I personally feel that's probably better than just putting two singles in there together. Tell me I'm wrong. I probably am. I normally am. But that's just what I prefer to do. You see there's no strength in it in reality because that just fell apart as I let go there. But when you get it in and screw it down, I like to think that gives this a bit of strength. So I just wrap it around each other a few times, pop it in that hole, push it right in as far as you can get it. You don't want any cables sort of sticking out, any threads if you like from the end. So get it right up to the insulation, then you know everything's right in there. And then tighten this down. Not ridiculously tight because you'll damage what's inside, but certainly tight enough to make sure it doesn't come out. So that's that one in. So then all we do, as I say, start working on the others. So the yellow one there is going to go in the base plate. So let's take that out and that negative one out at this point. So there's a tiny little, almost like a nipple if you like, on those connectors. All you do, and I've said it in other videos, just touch it slightly, pull it up, and then push the whole thing up. So press it in almost and then pull it up. A little bit of upward pressure. There we go. So that's those two out the way. So it's always good as well as you're doing this to try and work out the best way for the end state, if you like, how it's going to sit. Are these tangled round each other, etc, etc. Now I use a Wago, you can probably see off to the right, and that's why I've just snipped that black cable. So I'm hoping to reuse that connector, which means I just need to Wago in the other bit of that cable. But we'll come to that in a second. So next bit, I'm probably going to pop this yellow one on now. And that's really simple at this point. It's better to do it before you put the negative one on, because the access to that then becomes a little bit cut off once that other one's on top. So really simple to put on. They are just a push fit type thing. You push them down and then you get a little audible click if you like, and you know it's in. So we know that's in. Right, so looking at the rest of the cables, we're almost there. So this isn't difficult. Hopefully anyone can do this in reality, anyone with a screwdriver or two. So we go for the next ones, we go for the red ones next. So there's a couple, again, that are together in there. So we'll take that out and then we'll wrap these around each other and we'll prod them in there. And then it'll just leave the negative one at that point. So again, pull the end of that insulation off. It's already sort of half pre-cut there. So twist them round and pop it in. Really, really easy stuff. Just make sure you don't have the battery in or anything when you're doing this. I don't think I ever mentioned that, but it's I just felt it was obvious. But yeah, try not to do that. And if you're doing powered tools with cords on, obviously make sure they're not in. Isolate the circuit basically. So get those two in, screw them together, get them in there nice and tight. There we go, and we're almost done. Look, so just this one now. So these, I've always tended to use Wagos if I can save the connector on the end. So to do that, all I'm going to do here is strip the end of this one, and we're just going to connect this to the other end. So really, really simple. And I'd say the other end of the new controller. And that will then make that full circuit, and we should be good then. So there is space as well for a Wago, which is really good. There's not much in these sort of brushed circular saws. So I'll put, oh, actually looking at this connector, it has actually got some damage. So it's got some, almost looks like whitening around the middle actually, which is quite odd. So I'm not going to be able to use that. So I'm not going to be able to Wago in this instance, which is probably for the better actually. I'll do this one properly, especially if I'm showing you this. Although the Wagos, you know, they're probably as good as any crimper, if not better, to be honest. So what we'll do here, I've got this little connector here, which perfectly fits on this. It's actually quite tight as well, so that's going to make a good connection. So that's good. So what we'll do then is we'll get those two ends and we'll just pop them together in here. And to do that, I'm going to need to just snip this off. Give yourself as much as you can here. So just take the bare minimum off, because that smaller black cable is already really tight, only just reaches the end. So anything you take off is just going to make your life even harder. So try and untangle yourself and then just trim this end. So this one and the one from your new controller will just go into that little connector, little spade or whatever you want to call those things. You could, again, you could crimp these two together maybe, put them in there. You could put a bit of solder on them, whatever you want to do. I personally think twisting them together like this, crimping them down is enough, but you might not. So this is what I do. You might have your own way. There we go. So pop those there, push that right on, and then a couple of squeezes there of those retro crimpers. This was a family heirloom actually when my dad passed away, so it's something I like to use. Works perfectly well for that. So there we go, and then we're going to pop that on there. And I say that's quite tight, so that's going to do make a really secure connection there, which is good. That's not going to come off. Okay, so that in a nutshell is it. So we're all back together here. So at this point you could test it if you want to. Now if you're going to do this, try not to touch any metal parts, and you probably spotted the light came on at the front, which is good, because it wasn't on at the beginning. And back to life as well. So the saw works, the lights come on, so everything is good. So we know that works now, so really simple here. All we're going to do is get it back together. So it's a little bit fiddly. You've got to get all these wires back in their channels, you've got to get everything lined up again, and you've got to kind of fight against a little bit of tension on that smaller black cable to get the battery connector in at the bottom properly. So there's a couple of channels down here to get this black and white one in. So take that as far down as you can there. It runs underneath the switch as well. It is fairly important actually to get them in. If you didn't and it was just behind that switch there, when you put the case on, you'd probably be crushing them against something. You'd end up breaking them. So you don't want to snap a cable, cut a cable, anything like that. So at this point, I'd pop the controller in and then just look at where your cables are. Look at the bad job I did, if you like, in terms of making sure everything was not tangled. So this is going to be the tricky bit. You're going to have to slightly bend the end of that connector you've just done to actually make it fit in there, which is good. So that will fit. That's brilliant. So it is now just a case of popping all these different cables in. If you can see on my jacket there, that's actually fake snow. So don't worry, that's not crazy dandruff. I've been putting a Christmas tree up today, as it's almost December. Is that too early? I don't know, let me know. But let's pop these in. So we're almost there. Most of them are not too bad and they've got a little bit of slack, but certainly there's a couple of really annoying ones that don't have any slack really. It's slightly concerning sort of wedging them in there. But you know when they're in, they're not going to be disturbed, they're not going to be moved. I should have made this a little bit faster, but I don't really want to miss anything out. I want you, if you're going to do this yourself, just to see exactly what I do here. It's all just about making sure nothing is in the way when that second part of that case comes in. So when we push it down, we don't want to be screwing any cables between it. Got my face in there, sorry. Don't want to make anybody sick. But we're almost there here. Keep saying that, but we are now. So it's just this black and red one really. I say they're very, very tight there in the corner. Just trying to get them in there. If you get a chance, let me know about this new camera angle. I'm certainly finding the picture's better, but I've probably got this one too far over because you can see the edge of my head every now and then. So I'll move that back for the next one. So that looks like it's it. So I'll do a quick test fit just to make sure this will go on. You don't have to do this. This is just me making sure that I'm not going to be crushing any cables here. Pop the little lip out the way there, and you can see that closes well. And it's not up at any parts either, so it's not crushing anything. So if we take it back off, all we need to do now is pop those little triggers in there. There's a safety trigger with a spring, and then there's the actual trigger that you'd press from the outside. So this one, you need to just pay attention where you put your spring. So it's going to go in there, just behind a little lip. So you're going to need something. So I use this spudger all the time, but you're just going to need a little prodder, if you like, to get it in there. Because they are spring loaded, you need to make sure that is in correctly. Just like that there, simple enough. Okay, and then the actual trigger that you would be pressing with your finger. A little bit fiddly these, but really obviously key to get them in right, or you're not going to be able to use the tool. You don't want a sticky trigger or anything like that. So it is, as you're doing it, it's fairly obvious, but even though it is obvious, you still try and get it in at the wrong angle. There's a little guide, if you like, on the end of the trigger, bit of plastic there, if you like, where my thumbs are. So you get that in the hole on the shell, and then the rest of it kind of just fits in place, and there's a spring on that as well. So just double check it all functions there before you put the case back on. Make sure everything is still out of the way, and then just pray it doesn't move as you pop this on. Again, move that lip out the way, and then you can start screwing it all down if it fits. So I'll pop some of the smaller ones in just to give it some support. Make sure those cables can't move. And then we'll go for the bigger ones around the motor there. There we go. So these ones are at a slight awkward angle as well, so that bit I'm using won't go down there. Obviously got extenders and stuff, but you might as well just grab a screwdriver sometimes. So pop those in. And then you can just work your way around all the other screws, and it's really, that is it. We're at the point now where I'm just showing you how to screw screws in. So I'll speed it up a little bit. Whack them all in. And if anyone's after a workshop screwdriver, this installation tool is awesome. I've used a couple of other little ones, tried out a few, even tried that little Ryobi screwdriver 4-volt thing. Not worth it, don't use those things. So this is the last bit then. So it's going to go together like this. There's a little lip which you're going to put that clip through on top, and that actually holds that down. So you want to make sure you get that the right way round. I've done it a few times myself the wrong way round, but just think about it as you're doing it. So pop the washer on, keep that lip at the highest point, and remember it's the opposite way round the thread. So to tighten it on, we're actually going to be going left. So lefty tighty, which is slightly odd, but that's what it is. So try and get hold of the back of it here. There's a little head, if you like, that you just need to make sure is in the channel there before you can start tightening it. Otherwise you're just continuously spinning and not actually tightening anything. So tighten that up a bit, grab your 10mm, just tighten it up a bit more. Now this actually controls the guide here at the bottom. So what you want to do is get it so it's just right that when you pop this across, it's going to loosen off. So that is how you tighten it, pulling it that way. So really this is, if it's your own tool, just get it how you want it to be. If you want it to be really tight, or if you want it to just be loose enough to move, that sort of thing. So play around with it and you can see all the way, then tighten it and loosen it. So that's perfect for me. Say some of you might prefer something different. So to get them on, pop it in the channel, get your little toffee hammer out, and just pop it in. As simple as that. So that's the point really where you'd realise if you'd bent it and it's not good enough and you can't use it. But that's us back. So grab a battery and we'll give it a test. Make sure we fix this fault. I don't know if that's my eyes, but that kind of looked open then for a second, but I don't think it is. I'll give it a tighten. But anyway, that's us. Working again. Brilliant. I'll just grab a screwdriver and see if I can tighten that up. I can't see through it or anything. It just doesn't look right. There we go. But no, I think that's supposed to be like that. It is all the way down, actually, all the way around. But that's us back together. So that's how you do that. Apologies it was so long. Just wanted to show you step by step.